All right, today I'm covering why cold call value statements are going to change your cold call game for the better this year, why they're more effective and easier to use than the typical cold call scripts you're probably using, and then I'm going to take you through an entire example of how I deliver a value statement and how I handle any objections that are thrown at me. So let's get into it. All right, first I'm going to cover the 3 key components that make up the framework of every value statement. The first being that we are the ones who take control. We are going to be the ones leading the call, doing most of the talking at the outset. Value statements are under the premise that the burden of proof is on us, that we don't deserve anything, and we need to prove and deliver value first before asking anything in return. This is a lot different than typical cold call scripts that often lead off with qualifying questions. Hey, what do you use for this system? How's that going for you? Do you have any initiatives in the near future? Meanwhile, we haven't delivered any value as to how we can help them specifically, what priorities we typically work on, or what challenges we typically solve. We just jump right in and start asking questions as though, yeah, they're not busy, they don't have anything better going on, they don't have a busy work day on their schedule, and yeah, they have time for me to ask them 3, 4, 5 questions before I get to my point. I'm telling you, people are sick of that. That's the old way of cold calling. It may have worked 10 years ago, and maybe that's why it became popular. It doesn't work anymore, especially for new SDRs. So you want to be taking control. We are in the lead. And the way you do that is by neutralizing the opening, which I'm going to cover in a second, and you deliver who you are, why you're calling, and what you want. Very simple. Within 60 seconds, you want to be doing this at the outset of the call. The who you are is how you describe yourself, and you can change the way you describe yourself, whether that's your title, to make it more specific to their niche or their industry and make it sound like you work in that specific area that they work in. The why is the value you pack in, or it's your pitch essentially, and this is the most important part. You want to pack in as much value as you can in a concise way that they can digest. How do you help them? What challenges do you solve? Who do you typically work with? What priorities do you typically work on? These are things that you want to be covering very early on in the call. And then the what is the part that most SDRs skip, and that's time on their calendar. You have to ask for time on their calendar to give yourself a shot on net and any sort of potential of booking the meeting. You want to make your intent clear. So if you answer those 3 base questions, here's who I am, here's why I'm calling, like how I can help you, and here's what I want, which is time on their calendar, that's what's going to get the prospect to drop that defensive tone where they're just pushing you off the phone before you even get a chance to tell them why you're calling. It's because you haven't answered these 3 questions. So if you answer these, this is going to increase your odds that they're going to drop that defensive tone and actually engage with you, because now the ball is in their court. They can either say yes or no, and they know this call is not going to drag on for 10 minutes if they don't want it to, because at any point they can just say, hey, I'm good, all set, and hang up. Now they know what this call is about. The third and final quality of a value statement is that it's meant to help you move fast at as high of a quality as possible, and you do this by keeping the framework mostly the same on every cold call, and you just tweak a few key words here and there depending on the specific niche or the industry you're calling. Once you set a value statement and create one the right way once, whether you work in tech sales, SMMA, real estate marketing, once you make one correctly once, you should be able to use that 80 to 90% the same for whatever sub-industry you're calling. So if you work in tech sales, you can make one for people that work in finance departments, and it should work for almost every person you call. If you work in real estate marketing, you can make a different value statement depending on the specific market you're calling into. There could be different ways you typically help customers in those markets, and just by keeping it mostly the same, that who, why, what is the same, but you tweak a little bit of the language to make it sound more targeted. Next, here is the simple value statement funnel that makes this framework so beautiful. Once you make that statement of who you are, why you're calling, and then state your intent that you want to set aside time on their calendar at a later date, once you get that out, there's only 3 possible outcomes, and now they're within your funnel. They could either say yes right out of the gate, in which case just book the meeting. That's pretty self-explanatory. Great. They could say hard no, which includes being hung up on, where they don't even engage with you. They immediately push you off the phone. They say, nope, all set. Have a nice day, and they hang up. That's a hard no, in which case you move on. That's going to happen in sales. That's going to happen the majority of the time, no matter how good you get. You just have to get used to this. But 2 out of the 3 outcomes are very self-explanatory. If they say yes, book the meeting. If they say no, move on. So that only leaves one other outcome. If they don't hang up on you or they don't say yes right away, then they're giving you an objection. And my framework for handling objections is to continue selling time. Continue selling what you want, which is time on their calendar. That's what you've stated, that's what you've asked for, and that's what they've objected to. So don't show your hand and be thrown off what you asked for, which is time on their calendar. That's what you're selling here is time. If they say they already work with a competitor, you don't need to start pitching your solution and how much better it is than that competitor. This statistic says this, here's how much we can improve your current situation, because you're not going to convince them of that on a cold call. What you can convince them of is that it's worth time at a later date to discuss further, even if it's just to get introduced. And then on that call, you're going to have a better chance when you're fully prepared. They're ready for your call. You haven't just cold called them out of the blue. They're actually sitting down on a Zoom meeting most likely, and you can actually deliver a value-packed message there. You're going to have a lot better chance of overturning them there than this off-the-cuff cold call. So if they say, we already work with a competitor, I'll say, got it. Yeah, that's actually why I was reaching out. We work with customers of X competitor all the time. So if there's ever a fit, we can move ahead, but I think it at least makes sense to get introduced and aligned going forward. So does Wednesday this week work for you? Focus on being prepared for the top 3 to 5 most common objections you face, whether that's we already work with a competitor, or we just don't have the time or the bandwidth right now. I am shocked at how common these objections are for SDRs, yet when they hear them, they totally freak out and have no idea how to respond. An analogy I use is think back to school where you were studying for like a vocab test or studying terms or memorizing things in biology. People used to use flashcards for that stuff so that when a certain term or a certain vocab word was put in front of you, you immediately knew what the definition was. You should be doing that for the most common objections too. I'm not interested, flashcard. Boom, you should be able to know what to say. That's how you actually become good at objection handling, is preparation. It's just like anything else in life, you have to be prepared. So you should prepare for the most common ones first, and then branch out and start worrying about some of those more niche objections that sometimes get thrown your way as well. And that's how you can build this base of preparation. So as promised, I'm gonna run through a live role play of how I deliver a value statement and how I handle whatever objection is thrown at me using this framework. In this example, I'm going to be a tech sales rep calling into a finance department at a life science account. But this framework can be used whether you work in tech sales, any other industry, or calling into a different department, whether it's HR, marketing. The point is I want to show you how this framework works. So I call, I say, hey Jim, this is Connor Murray calling from X company. How are you? Good. How are you? Where'd you say you were calling from again? Yeah, I'm calling from X company. I'm just reaching out because I'm part of the strategic life science team that supports X company regarding back office financial processes. So anything related to your planning, budgeting, financial reporting, anything like that. And I'm just reaching out because our team works with companies specifically in the life science space, usually on priorities related to rolling forecasts, strategic planning, even intercompany planning. And I know I kind of called you out of the blue here, so I'm more just looking to set aside some time this week to get introduced and aligned with your priorities going forward. Are you free on Wednesday or Thursday this week? Hey Connor, thanks for reaching out, but right now we just simply don't have the time or bandwidth. Maybe reach back out in a few months and check in then. Got it. Yeah, that's actually why I was reaching out. I assumed this was a busy period for you. This is more just to get introduced and aligned going forward so that when you do have that bandwidth, our team will be ready to support you right out of the gate. So does Wednesday work for you? So that's just an example, but you can use this framework and apply it to whatever industry or whatever you sell, whatever your target persona is. You can replace some of that language I used. In this example, I talked about financial reporting, planning, budgeting. Just by Googling on 20 minutes, you can come up with a pretty solid value statement for your target persona just by plugging in those words there and using that who, why, what formula. In this example, I delivered the value statement. I didn't get a yes immediately. He didn't push me off the phone. He gave me a legitimate objection. He told me that hey, we just don't have the bandwidth right now. Maybe reach back out down the line. And rather than trying to convince them right there on a cold call that all of a sudden they should have bandwidth and they should allocate all these resources, I more just pitched getting introduced and aligned so that we're ready to go and support them going forward. There's a little bit of value there, and selling the time is a lot easier of a task. Then what do you think I'm going to do once I get them on that call? I'm going to convince them that they have the bandwidth, or at least put forth my best value proposition as to why, but I want to be doing it on that set aside discovery call, not on an off-the-cuff cold call. So hope this helped. There are some similarities to the typical cold call script, but it is a slightly different approach where we take control. The burden of proof is on us. We deliver value, who, why, what, in 30 seconds and get a quality shot on net, and they operate within our funnel. We're the ones who are in the lead and control. So hope this helped. If it did, hit the like button, and I'll see you on the next one.